I'm Harris Kornstein, Assistant Professor of Public and Applied Humanities at the University of Arizona, and I'm going to be reading an abridged version of The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. This is a story that really speaks to our own individual identities and how we understand ourselves in community, as well as how we overcome the adversities of being teased sometimes for who we are. The Ugly Duckling, an abridged version by Hans Christian Andersen. It was very pleasant out in the country. It was summertime, the corn was yellow, the oats green, the hay was stacked down in the green meadows, and there the stork walked about on his long red legs. Round the fields and meadows there were large woods, and within them deep lakes. Indeed, it was pleasant out in the country. Full in the sunshine, an old manor house stood, surrounded by a deep moat. It was as lovely in among them as in the thickest wood, and there was a duck sitting on her nest. She had got to hatch out her little ducklings, but by this time she was well nigh tired out. They took so long about it, and she had very few callers. The other ducks preferred swimming about the moat to coming up and sitting under a dock leaf to chat with her. At last, one egg after another cracked and said, "Pip, pip." All the egg yolks had come to life and were sticking their heads out. "Quack, quack," said she, and they said it too, as well as they could, and looked all round them beneath the green leaves. And their mother let them look as much as they liked, for green is good for the eyes. "What a big place the world is," said all the young ones, for to be sure they had a great deal more room now than when they lay in the egg. "Do you suppose this is all the world?" said their mother. "Why, it stretches out far beyond the other side of the garden, right into the parson's field. But I've never been there. You're all there, I suppose?" And she got up. "No, that's not quite all. There lies the biggest egg still. How long will it take? I'm really almost sick of it." And with that, she sat down again. "Well, how goes it?" asked an elderly duck who came to call on her. "Oh, this one egg takes a dreadful long time," said the sitting duck. "It won't break. But just you look at the others. They are the sweetest ducklings I've ever seen." "Let me look at the egg that won't hatch," said the old duck. "You may be sure that's a turkey's egg. I was made a fool of once that way, and I had my share of trouble. Ah, yes, that's a turkey's egg. You just let it lie and teach the rest to swim." "Oh, I'll just sit on it a bit longer," said the duck. "Just as you please," said the old duck, and walked off. At last, the big egg opened. "Pip, pip," said the young one, scrambling out. He was very big and ugly. The duck looked at him. "That's a fearfully big duckling, that is," she said. "None of the others look like that. I suppose it can't be a turkey poult. Well, we'll soon see. Into the water he shall go if I have to kick him out myself." Next day the weather was perfectly delicious. The sun shone all over the green docks, and the mother duck and all her family came out and down to the moat. Splash! Into the water went she. "Quack, quack," she said, and one duckling after another plumped in. The water went over their heads, but they were up again in a moment and swam beautifully. "No, no, that's no turkey," she said. "Look how nicely he uses his legs and how well he holds himself up. That's my own child. He's really quite handsome if you look at him properly. Quack, quack. Come along with me and I'll take you out into the world and introduce you to the duckyard." So they went into the duckyard, but the other ducks round them looked at them and said quite loud, "Look there. What an object that duckling is. We can't stand him." And a duck rushed at him and bit him in the neck. "Let him be," said his mother. "He isn't doing any harm." "Yes, but he's too big and odd altogether," said the duck who had bitten him, "so he's got to be smacked." Said the mother duck, "He's not handsome, but he has a really good disposition and swims as nicely as any of the rest, even better, I venture to say. I believe he will grow handsome, or perhaps in time he will grow even somewhat smaller. He has lain too long in the egg, and so has not acquired a proper shape." So they made themselves at home, but the poor duckling who had come last out of the egg and looked so ugly was bitten and buffeted and made to look a fool by the hens and the ducks alike. The poor duckling didn't know where to stay or which way to go. He was so miserable at being ugly and the butt of the whole duckyard. That was the first day, and as time went on, it got worse and worse. The wretched duckling was chased about by everybody, and even his mother and sisters were nasty to him. And the ducks bit him, and the hens pecked him, and the maid who had to feed the creatures kicked at him. So he ran away and flew over the fence. The little birds in the bushes shot up in the air in a fright. "That's because I'm so ugly," the ugly duckling thought. and shut his eyes, but ran on all the same till he got out into the wide marsh where the wild duck lived. And there he lay all night, for he was very tired and very unhappy. In the morning, the wild duck flew up and caught sight of their new comrade. "What sort of a chap are you?" they asked. And the duckling turned to this side and that and greeted them as well as he could. "You're precious ugly," said the wild ducks, "but that doesn't matter to us as long as you don't marry into our family." Poor wretch, he wasn't thinking much about marrying as long as he could be allowed to lie among the reeds and drink a little marsh water. There he lay 2 whole days, and then came a pair of wild geese, or rather wild ganders, for they were both he's. They hadn't been hatched out very long, and so they were particularly lively. "Here, mate," they said, "you're so ugly I quite like you." At that moment there was a bang bang, and both the wild geese fell dead among the reeds, and the water was stained blood red. It was terrible for the wretched duckling, who was bending his neck to get it under his wing, when all at once close to him there was a fearful big dog with his tongue hanging right out of his mouth and his eyes shining horribly. He thrust his muzzle right at the duckling and showed his sharp teeth, and then splash!